What's up you guys, it's 2Bricks and I have the next installment of my Micro Fleet series here, and this is going to be focusing on the Mandalorian Seasons 1 and 2, kind of an update to Season 1, because when the show initially came out there were some ships that I didn't quite know how I wanted to tackle them just yet, and then for Season 2 all the new ships that we've gotten, and I'm not going to be focusing on all of these today because a lot of these have their own videos, but I just wanted to lay out all of the ships that I have that have made an appearance in The Mandalorian, with the exception of the Arquitens light cruiser, which is not yet finished, but that's something that I'm building over on my other playlist, the Building the Arquitens light cruiser series, so be sure to check that out. But yeah, these are the ships that we're going to be looking at today. And I'll be leaving the Razor Crest in place because it's kind of a part of this diorama right here. It's looking very, very sad right now, dangling the way that it is. But yeah, of course, if you guys saw the Mandalorian Season 2, you recognize what scene this is representing. And technically, this is a Rebels inclusion right here, but Bo-Katan Kryze and her Mandalorian Warriors are rolling around the galaxy, and I have to imagine that they... we did glimpse the larger Mandalorian fighter there, and I'm just assuming that we didn't see them, but with their little mini fleet that they have some of these single-man Fang fighters as well. Those also did make an appearance in the Clone Wars Season 7. So yeah, I'm just going out on a limb and saying that those are in there somewhere in the background. So yeah, without further ado, let's take a look at all of the new ships that I've added to my fleet. Alright, so beginning with the smallest one here, we have a really interesting ship in universe. Not a particularly interesting model, on account of how tiny it is, but this has a really, really fascinating backstory within the Star Wars galaxy. It's the Imperial Transporter. This was initially a toy. It was the first toy ever to be, designed for the Star Wars toy line that wasn't based on anything within canon. And then I believe that was produced in the 70s or early 80s. And then when Disney did the purchase of Lucasfilm, and they started producing Star Wars Rebels, they recanonized this, or I guess brought it in to canon for the first time, and it was introduced in Rebels, and it's a fun little kind of troop transporter, and it would have, in the toy there were just stormtrooper figures that would be placed on the sides here that could just be like deployed really easily, and the design is tweaked a little bit obviously for canon. It looks a little more realistic than just having a bunch of guys hanging out the side of this, but in the Rebels iteration of it, it really did have those kind of, these would open and stormtroopers would come flooding out. So that was pretty cool, I thought. So my rendition is obviously to scale with the rest of my fleet, so it's very, very small. But this was involved in a super cool chase sequence down this canyon where they were getting chased by TIE fighters. This stud on top I'm using to represent the double cannon that sits on the top of the thing, and they were using that to kind of fire back at the TIE fighters that were chasing them. So I think that's that works out just fine. And this is kind of the back hatch here. And then these protruding sections, I don't know what their role is now in the new design of it, but previously, like I said, that would be where the stormtroopers would hang out. So really, really tiny one, and but it's nice to add some variety to my Imperial fleet. I always enjoy getting new Empire vehicles in there, and this one was a fun one, so there you go. All right, next up we have the Outland Tie Fighter, made famous by Moff Gideon flying it around and crashing it at the end of Season 1. And of course, a really, really cool design that that has these wings that can fold up and retract as it comes in for a landing. So it's something that I wanted to try to replicate for my fleet. And so we have the retractable wings here, so it can land just like that. And I thought that was such a cool addition when I first saw it. When I first saw it in The Mandalorian Season 1, it broke my brain a little bit because I was like, wait, can all TIE fighters do that? And we've just never seen it. But no, this is a special design, and the name, the clue is in the name, the Outland Tie. It was produced when the Empire was losing ground in the war, and they didn't have as many resources in the Outer Rim and more remote areas, so they produced a TIE fighter that could land on its own without any support. And so, as we see in The Mandalorian, Moff Gideon can land this, pretty much anywhere, in the middle of town square, on the top of a mountain, whatever he wants. He doesn't have to have all the apparatus that goes along with kind of how we see in like the sequel trilogy. You have all those racks of TIE fighters all stacked up inside of the ships, and it's all very organized. But this is just like, it can just go and do its thing. So what I really like about this is that it's actually a much more accurate size for a TIE fighter in general than the ones that I currently have in my fleet. So I actually may end up switching all of my TIE fighters to this design, but just for the regular fixed wing ones, I would just have them be fixed wing. And then for the Outland, you know, it would just, I guess I would fold the wings down to indicate which one is the Outland, and, you know. But I think that's really cool. And this is, you know, it's much like I have previously used these very large solar panels here, which I've never been happy with the size of, although the shape is pretty much perfect. So going with this, I think, will give me, especially when I have other ships that scale alongside this, like we have the Gozanti class cruiser that has to carry TIE fighters underneath it. When you look at the scale of this, I obviously need to add a stud to this design, but to be able to have that under there in a much more scale accurate fashion, I think would be cool. So it's something I'm considering. You guys can let me know in the comments which one you prefer for the standard stock TIE fighter design. But I really like the design of this in The Mandalorian, and I like that it got to be involved in such a cool, kick-ass action sequence with the, you know, Mando hanging off the back of it with his jetpack and his little grappling hook. That was great. So yeah, there is the Outland TIE Fighter. And sticking with the Imperial stuff here, we have the Juggernaut, as it was colloquially referred to by the troopers as. This is a really interesting, another one that kind of really makes sense for the time period, where you can tell that a lot of thought went into the vehicle design. This is a transporter. I think it's one of the only times I've ever seen rubber tires on a Star Wars vehicle. I'm pretty sure that's never occurred before, but it obviously makes sense. You know, you don't need this gigantic thing. Let me actually pull that in and show you. So, you know, when we're comparing, this is the Clone Wars version, but I think that the Imperial version that we saw in Rogue One, which was a prisoner transport ship, might have, or transport vehicle, maybe even larger than this one, and obviously all gray. But yeah, if you just look at the way that the Empire has been scaled down as they've been defeated technically, right? And the Imperial remnant is all that remains. So I think having this much more scaled down but still iconic vehicle that we just recognize immediately. It has the 5 sets of wheels. It's got that nice slanted front cockpit there. I think that's such a genius way of visually showing the Empire in its reduced state. So that's pretty cool. So obviously another awesome action sequence takes place with this thing, where we have Mayfeld up at the front here piloting or driving, and then Mando on top trying to stop the pirates from attacking the shipment. I'm of the opinion that those were freedom fighters, personally, trying to drive out the Empire, but for the episode they labeled them as pirates, so that's what we'll go with. And then down here, just use this ingot piece that's sitting at an angle to create the illusion of this cockpit, which I think looks really good from an up angle like this. Obviously less good when you can see right through the middle of it, but I think that gives the shape of that windshield pretty well, and I think captures the whole front section shape here pretty nicely. And obviously we have those rubberized tires, like I was saying. I mean, of course, there's probably some space word for it's not actually rubber, it's like, you know, space rubber. I don't know. Whatever, they have all their unique materials in Star Wars. But that's not my job to figure out. I just have to build the thing. And then, yeah, it has the ability to kind of snake along the road with these different, the sections are each hinged. I don't have that represented in my one, because obviously how could I do that at this scale? But I think that it's a really nice looking thing, and I think you can believably, like, you can obviously slightly offset the studs, just not plugging them in all the way. You can kind of create a little bit of that look. But I think this believably conveys the thing, and I think that was such a great episode. It had so many great little kind of ethical dilemmas, and just a lot of awesome Star Wars stuff that really delved into the world, you know, as we find it at that time period. So I thought that was really great. And yeah, this is going to be forever emblematic of that great episode for me. And whenever I look at this, it puts a smile on my face, because I think about Bill Burr as Mayfeld and how great he was in that episode. So yeah, there is the new version of the Imperial Juggernaut. Next up, we have the Imperial Transporter, and it's really bugging me that we're not getting proper official names, sizes, different technical information about these new ships, because they're coming out with such, you know, at such a fast pace, and the new shows are just introducing tons of new vehicles, and there's no like visual dictionary or anything for us to look at. But so far, we're just referring to this as the Imperial Transporter, and I love the design. As soon as I saw it, I immediately understood what they were doing. Again, it's that thing of building the world as it is now and kind of giving us the visual representation for where the galaxy's at. Because, obviously the First Order Troop Transporter has a very similar design. It has that front sloping in hatch section. It's got a similar capacity to hold troops. And then we have the previous iteration here, which is the TIE Reaper, which dropped off the Special Forces Death Troopers in Rogue One. So, you can see the in-between stage. Like, you can just imagine these engines here housing the wings of the previous design, and then stripping that away, and then eventually stripping even more of that away and getting to a much more sleek, boxy, simple design here. This has kind of still got some flair to it. So I think that's really awesome. I absolutely love when we have the visual language of Star Wars, and I love that they can use that to inform us about what's happening in the world. So I think that's really great. So yeah, just looking at this, it's got a double laser cannon at the front, but I just have the single piece here because I just like the way that it looks. But these should be two on either side. It's got the very simple sloped in under section here, and then this backside. These are two large engines at the front. I couldn't really think of a way at this scale to represent a nice look for those engine intakes, but I'm going to definitely keep pondering on that, because that's something that I want to get in there, where it's got these kind of nice grills at the front. But I don't want to compromise on the size of it, so we'll see. I'll come up with something eventually, I'm sure. And again, we don't have any accurate size info for this, other than that it holds approximately 40 troops. That's how many we see kind of engaging in the episode, so that's what's assumed to have come out of each one of these. But yeah, so we know the name of it, we know what it looks like, that's about it. So that's all I kind of have to go off of, and if it ends up that this is too large, which it very well might be, then I'll just have to eventually figure out a way to scale this down even more. Although capturing this very kind of unique wedge shape here was already really difficult. It has that little lip under there, and then this sloping section. I even would prefer to be able to get this to open if I could, but obviously so limited already with scale. I just don't see how it's possible to do much more to scale this down. But I mean, of course, there's always a way. If you think about it long enough, you come up with something. But I'm happy with the design for now, and even though I'm not confident of the scale of it and how it fits into everything else, it looks good and it captures the shape well. So yeah, that's about all I really have on that one. Obviously here I'm just doing the same idea to get this subtle angle here. I'm not pushing this plate down all the way in the back. And it's a trick I've used a few times on different ships that have awkward angles that are difficult to capture in Lego. So yeah, I think that works out all right. So obviously you guys can have your opinions on it, but for me, I think putting this amongst the fleet, I'm happy. So there you go. There is the Imperial Transport. Next up, we have the Trask fishing trawler, and it's facing backwards right now to you guys. This is the back end of the ship, and this is the front end here with this what evokes a sail, but definitely is not a sail. And I position it in this angle facing away from us because that is the one angle that we see it in the show. It gets one establishing shot, and then we see it basically we're in kind of on the decks looking, getting in close and following Mando and the action. So I think well, there might be another shot actually from a very, very far away distance where they blow this up later in the episode that gives you more of a look at the exterior, but predominantly you see it like this. So this is an interesting ship in the sense that it is a ship. It's actually a boat, a fishing trawler. It has this large open section in the middle where it opens up, and just like a real, earthbound fishing boat, you'd have all of your catch down in there. They have a large, some sort of tentacled monster in there that I think it's called a manticore or something like that, which the guys who run the boat try to push Grogu, Baby Yoda, into there and get him eaten. So obviously that's a death sentence right there, right? You try to hurt the baby, you're gone. That's it. You're never gonna make it through the episode. This ship is cool because it has like a ton of different patchwork you know, different plates and things that are removed, obviously from like salvage and other things, and bits that are rusted, some parts that are painted, and it looks really cool. I think that it has a really unique look, and you know, it's a boat, but it still has these like large engines that stick out above the water on the side to kind of give you the sense that it's being propelled, not by a traditional like propeller setup or anything like that. It's got Star Wars-y tech, so it's not just a boat. And yeah, this large section up here, I don't know what this is. I would assume it has something to do with communications or something to get a, you know, antenna up high, but it definitely is meant to evoke a sail, which I think is cool. And then at the front here, it has these kind of two pontoons that come off of the side as well, that or maybe they're not pontoons actually, maybe they're kind of hydrofoils like you see on a catamaran, or I don't know my boat lingo too well, but yeah, you sometimes see those where the ship or the boat can rise up out of the water a little bit, and it'll sit on these large, I don't know what you call them, but they kind of have that look at the front, and I like that, you know, it's another thing to evoke real world ships without being, you know, having the same function, and I think that's cool. So yeah, this is obviously meant to represent, the grill here is meant to represent that open area underneath, and I just have some black tiles under there to give the sense of some depth under there. This would be the superstructure where I assume the captain is piloting the ship from. I say piloting because it's, you know, not a real boat. And yeah, I got these nice angles to these engines back here, and I think that worked out pretty darn well. So yeah, that's all there really is to this one. It's an iconic scene where we first meet Bo-Katan, and you know, the no longer Death Watch rescues Grogu from the clutches of the monster, and Mando gets to see other Mandalorians take their helmets off for the first time, so that's cool. So yeah, there is the Trask fishing trawler. And speaking of Bo-Katan and her pals here, I have the Mandalorian Fang fighter, which is a really fun little design and was actually pretty tricky to capture. This is a ship that can rotate, or the idea is that the wings can rotate around, and I'm trying to get that to happen right now for you guys. So it's it can technically do that because, you know, these pieces can be spun around, but it is hard to just, you know, be able to get in there and rotate this around without everything breaking. Obviously, the limitations of the scale make it so that I have certain compromises I need to make on structural integrity. You guys know I love my structural integrity, but this is just one of those things for the micro fleet that I have to sacrifice. It kind of has the similar shape to the you know, the Jedi Starfighters, the Eta 2s, which I like. Never really thought about it that much until I built it, how similar that profile is. So it's pretty cool. And then let me show it to you next to its big brother, which I'll bring in right here. So obviously this is a much scaled down version of the Mandalorian fighter ships that we've seen previously, and this is the one that belonged to Pre-Vizsla and then later Maul, which he repainted. And yeah, it's like you know, 5-6 times bigger overall in proportion. I don't really know. I haven't measured out exactly, but it's huge. And we do actually see when Mando goes to recruit the help of Bo-Katan to rescue Grogu in the penultimate episode, we see one of these parked, and again it has the wings in the upward position, so I think that's cool. I didn't see any of these around, although I may be mistaken. I have to go back and rewatch that scene. There may have been some parked off to the side, but we know that Bo-Katan and her forces have these. So yeah, let me just place the camera back down and we'll get rid of this guy. He's not the focus. And then yeah, so the same kind of idea applies with the Mandalorian fighters, where they will rotate around and the cockpit will stay level. So it could be fighting in fighter mode like this with the cockpit up, or it can come level. And then I believe that these can also rotate up for landing as well, although I don't recall if I saw that happen in the show, in Rebels, where we see these mostly. But I have to assume, because it can do so many of the other things that the big guy can do, I have to assume that it can do that. So I don't know. It's another thing I'll have to research. You'd think I would do my research before shooting these videos, but I just want to get them out to you guys. But yeah, I'm sure you guys will tell me in the comments too if I don't find it out. In the back here we have the single large engine and then the two off to the side, just like in the bigger one. I kind of awkwardly had to represent the sort of, there's this area of the design where it slopes up and then, accommodates this large round engine back here. And so I just have this little sticking up section of plate right here, but it really should taper down into the wing. But again, limitations of the scale. I'm using the fairly thick, chunky wings. I would like these to be thinner, but I really wanted to get the kind of color scheme in here that is evoked with the blue. There's a little bit of tan in there to represent some like striping. And yeah, I think, there wasn't a way that I could think of to get that and if I was to use plates or something, to be able to get the shape just right and also the color scheme. So yeah, it's a little bit of a compromise, but I think it works out all right. But yeah, that's a pretty cool one, and I think has been notably missing ever since I included the bigger one. My dog barking. Ever since I included the bigger one in the fleet, you kind of want to see the smaller one too. So there it is, the Mandalorian Fang Fighter. All right, and here's an interesting one. This is the Bounty Hunter Starfighter, which right now is the only name that we have for it. Fans of the show that are particularly eagle-eyed may remember this from season 1. It only appeared for a brief moment or two on screen before being incinerated, blown up by the Razor Crest in the first ever kind of interesting display of what the Razor Crest could do as a combat vessel. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, this was a guild bounty hunter that was after Mando and the child and got in over his head and got himself blown up. So this is his Starfighter here. It's pretty cool looking, pretty unique in the Star Wars galaxy, I think. Never seen one that's shaped quite like this. So these are supposed to represent these two engines off to the side, as these two gun emplacements that come out of the side of the engines there, or the wings, I'm sorry. There's a red cockpit because it had a very red lit up interior, and you can see from this photo of it, this is probably the only concept that I've seen, it has that kind of that red glow emanating from the cockpit. So I just wanted to reflect that here, and I'm using a red clip piece to do that. It has kind of this tan accent to the front here, and it gets a little bit lighter towards the front. This is supposed to represent those two cannons at the front of the ship, and then that's about it really. This is a pretty simple, fun little build. I'll just show you. It scales pretty well, I think, to an X-wing, and I think that feels about appropriate to me. So yeah, I think this is supposed to be a little bit of a larger Starfighter. It's got kind of a lot of bulk towards the back section of it, so I think that feels about right. Yeah, don't actually remember the guy's name who piloted it, if he even had a name, but R.I.P. Bounty Hunter who should not have messed with Mando. So there you go. All right, and then finally here we have this very large crane walker thing, which is involved in probably my favorite joke of the season, where the Razor Crest looks like it's going to make a bumpy, albeit intact landing on the Trask platform there on the docks, and of course the engines kick out right at the last minute and the ship plunges into the ocean. So that was a lot of fun. Poor Frog Lady was very, very scared. And then in the next scene we see this is being fished out by the Harbor Crane Walker device here. There was I saw a lot of people saying on after the episode aired that it was really cool that they decided to repurpose an AT-AT Walker to turn it into a crane. I'm sorry to tell you, this is the size of an AT-AT Walker right here, and so just going off of, obviously again, there's no official size. There's no official size to kind of compare it to. Here's an AT-M6 Walker, which is the ones from the Rise of Skywalker. So, I'm just going off of, or sorry, not the Last Jedi. I'm going off of the size relative to the Razor Crest in the, in the show. And it makes sense to me, honestly, that the Walker would be this tall, because cranes are, by necessity, very, very tall. They need to be able to get up super high and, lift heavy objects. So I think it makes sense that it would be massively oversized like this. It has a really cool sort of cockpit area here that's very reminiscent of a sandcrawler. Actually, this whole top section here is basically the bulk of a sandcrawler on legs, so that's kind of interesting. Again, I don't know if I'm exactly correct on the proportions here, but given, if you kind of compare it to the shot that we get in the show, I'll retract here. I'll show you this in a little bit. You can actually retract the string. And so if you have that arm sort of in a little bit and pull the ship up, I think that you feel like this is roughly the correct scale. So I think that'll work. Yeah, but it is just comedic to see how oversized it is. So yeah, like I mentioned, I have this little ratcheting, or not ratcheting, this little winch up here that you can use to retract the string. The string just goes down here and is attached with a couple of clips to keep it nice and secure. So I have this one up here which kind of acts as a stopper, and then it feeds through this double loop in here, so that gives it some friction so that it doesn't want to just immediately drop, which is cool. And then here I have a very simple kind of noose that can be loosened to just to cradle the ship there. There's actually a similar thing in the shot in the show. It just releases these cables at the bottom, and the whole ship just crashes down onto the deck, and these are just discarded. So in my one, I just decided to simplify it and make it into this little loop here, which I'm just achieving with a couple of these rounded pieces and just tying the end of the string piece back on itself, and then using a stud here to keep it pinched in there. So I think that works out decently well. And then if you actually look at the details here of this walker body, you can kind of just see a hint of something back there in the one angle that we see of it in the show. So I just imagined some mechanical details and some stuff back here to try to make it look a little bit more vibrant and used and alive and Star Warsy. There are these two little arms that seem to be coming off the sides here that I think you can kind of make out in the official scene. I tried to be as accurate as I could with the legs, but obviously I have no idea about the feet because the feet are underwater in the one scene that we see it in. So that's something that I just had to kind of imagine. I went with traditional sort of big round walker feet, which I think works out. It's a reasonable guess, I think. And I actually have these intentional holes here in this design because the walker is actually, it's walking through ocean water, it's wading. And so I figured if there are holes in the feet, it can more easily lift the feet up without, if you guys have ever tried to, like, for example, walk with flippers on or dive fins, if you're trying to walk through the water, there's a lot of drag that's created and it's pretty difficult. So I figured if they have a sort of a fluid design here that lets it just sort of pass through the water, it would somehow make it easier. I don't know. That was just my take on it. I have no idea what the feet look like, and it doesn't especially matter. This is a sort of a sight gag ship. It's not going to be something that appears a bunch of times. You see a crane with feet, and you see the Razor Crest hanging off of it, and you get it. So, but that's cool. So yeah, it can also be posed, so it has movable knees, and then also the legs themselves, each at the hip, can move, and then also the ankles are posable on ball joints. So you can really get a lot of interesting different angles on the feet. It can be definitely in a legit, walking pose, like so. But mainly we see it just sort of making slight adjustments. It's sort of standing upright, and maybe it'll just raise one foot at a time and just slowly move around to where it needs to be. Of course, it would be much easier for this to maneuver if it had a turntable so that the entire top body section could swivel like on a real crane, but this is Star Wars, so everything has to be harder than it needs to be. So the walker just slowly reposes itself around 1 foot at a time, and then I guess it will extend out the crane and drop the cargo. So yeah, that's all cool. And then there's this little antenna thing off to the side here, which is reflected in the model as far as I can tell. And then you have these two little floodlights up here so that the operators can see what they're looking at. And then, yeah, just the ability for the crane arm to slide in and out, I think, is really useful. And this is a pretty simple design up here with the turntable. And there you go. It does what it needs to do. And that was all that I could really ask of it. So there's the crane, and I'll just show you guys again. You can loosen up this little loop here. Let me unwinch it so I can have some more slack. And then you just kind of cradle the Razor Crest in there, let it tighten up, and there you go. And then we can lift the ship out of the ocean, bring this up slowly, winch, 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 and then swing it over to land, and then just let it drop down. So yeah, one of many trials and tribulations that the poor old Razor Crest suffered in season 2 of The Mandalorian. Just one more indignity that was required. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I'm glad to have this in my fleet. I think I will actually be displaying the Razor Crest like this from now on, because I think that's just hilarious. This once mighty ship that everyone adores, reduced to just hanging off of this crane. So I think that's fun. But yeah, so there you go. There's the Razor Crest and Razor Crest crane lifting walker device. Oh, one thing I should mention, this is the wrong piece in here. I meant to have 4 of these arch pieces to represent these kind of sleeves that sit over the top of the legs. So that one is unintentional mistake, and I will be switching that out for a proper sized, more properly round wheel arch piece in the near future. Alright guys, I just wanted to finish out the video by giving you guys a quick overview of the entire fleet. And you guys may notice, if you're eagle-eyed fans, there's a few ships in here that I have not yet covered as part of my main series, but I just wanted to give you guys a full overview of how the entire fleet is looking so far. And I don't know about you guys, but this brings me a heck of a lot of joy to look at all of these ships all together in one spot. The Nebulon B suffered some battle damage back there a little bit, so it's okay. It's going to get rebuilt at some point anyway. But yeah, it's a little worse for the wear at the moment. And then here, of course, in progress, we have the Arquitens, which is, like I said, has its own video series for the making of, but I just wanted to get in here for scale. It's coming along nicely, so yeah, we'll go, you know, through the age of rebellion, down into the age of resistance there, and finally with the episode 9 ships, where I decided I want to put that the Tantive V4 down there, because it did make an appearance in the pretty large appearance actually in the Rise of Skywalker, so it feels like an appropriate place. But yeah, it's big, you guys. This thing is I'm gonna need more space. I'm gonna need a heck of a lot more space to display all this. And you know, the new ships that we just added today are down here, in case you guys didn't see where those were. All the Mandalorian ships right there. And we have the ship and the Juggernaut down there. So yeah, that's a small addition to a very large collection. I'm going to be doing a proper in-depth fleet overview at some point soon. I think once the Arquitens is done. And I have an episode 1 update video coming soon, which is going to feature some new Phantom Menace ships. I'm also going to be introducing a new section when it feels appropriate, which will be right in here, the High Republic era. So, you know, here we have Old Republic, which is also going to get expanded massively in this direction. I have a lot more stuff planned for that. You know, all of the prequels and Clone Wars stuff in here, and then sort of the in-between the Dark Times area, you know, the timeline. Yeah, and then, like I said, down into the sequels and everything down there. So, yep, still have a lot to do, but this is my crazy, crazy obsession unfolding as we speak. And I don't know what you guys think, but I think it's pretty nuts. So, don't forget to subscribe if you guys are not, if you guys are new to the channel, because just imagine all of this dwarfed by the Venator class Star Destroyer, which is 3 times the length of this Arquitens cruiser right here. So just picture it running all the way down here. I think it's going to be freaking ginormous. So if you guys are excited to see me kill myself trying to make that happen, go ahead and subscribe, because once I hit 100,000 subscribers, the work will begin on that project. That's going to be a world record breaking Venator class Star Destroyer. So I'm insanely excited to be able to share that with you guys, but I just don't have the resources to do it right now, and that's why I set that goal to reach that many subs, so that I can you know, be able to afford the Lego pieces to make that happen. Alright guys, so that's pretty much going to do it for today. I just wanted to give you guys a sense of how this is coming, because it's been a little while, and my goodness, I mean, seeing it all together really is eye-opening. It's just nuts. I hope you guys are getting a kick out of it like I am. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for today. Thank you again for watching, for liking, commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff. You know how that really helps out the channel. Don't forget, I have a Discord server now, so check out the link in the description if you want to join that. We have some cool stuff in there. We're sharing some mocks and tips and tricks and just general questions and discussions, so that's a lot of fun. So yeah, hop in and come have a chat with us. Alright guys, so that's it for today. I'm going to see you on the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.